Hello everyone, I'm Nathalia Toro, and today I want to talk to you about multitasking. And despite what many people think, I will explain why this habit, practice, way of working or living, however you want to call it, can be making you highly ineffective and unproductive. Nevertheless, to mention that multitasking is preventing your brain from achieving peak performance and high productivity. So welcome, and in case you're watching my content for the first time, I'm a hypnotherapist and unconscious mind coach accredited by the General Hypnotherapy Standards Council of the UK, and I help executives and entrepreneurs like you to achieve unshakable self-confidence and peak performance in their career and in their personal life as well. How? By helping them to break free from limiting beliefs, self-sabotage thoughts and behaviors, and irrational fears. So I would like to tell you what's the motivation behind this video today. Last week, I posted on my social media asking people what they thought about multitasking, or better, if they thought that multitasking was synonymous with productivity and high performance. Why? Because in my practice experience, I've had people telling me that they are great at multitasking and having their attention in 3, 4, or 5 things at the same time, which in their concept, multitasking is such a skill to be proud of. I've seen even job ads from companies when looking for talent presenting multitasking as a part of the criteria for a person to be a successful candidate, implying like a skill or a professional competence in those ads, for example. So I put the question out there and I got a good amount of engagement and people answering to the question. Some of them said that it depends on what you are doing, then you could be multitasking, or it depends on what you are working on. Some claim that multitasking made them feel as if they were doing more or actually going the extra mile. Some said that it depends if you are good at it or not. And others said definitely multitasking is not a way of being productive. They said as well that multitasking is the best way to do 2 or more things in a very mediocre way, and so on. So I've noticed that when some people talk about multitasking, they have this false impression of doing 2 or more things or tasks at the same time. I've also noticed that many people, when you ask what they are doing, their automatic and quick response is, I'm trying to multitask, instead of I'm multitasking. And I couldn't agree more, as the best part a human can do is trying to multitask to fail at it, because multitasking doesn't really exist as an action or skill itself. It merely exists as a concept of handling several things or paying attention to multiple things at the same time, which is not possible. It is scientifically proved that the brain can only focus in one thing at the same time. We just pretend to multitask. So, multitasking is most probably what have you working 12, 14, or 16 hours a day to find you haven't done much of the things you wanted to get done at the end of the day, probably every day or very often. So you go to bed with this an accomplishment feeling and already mildly overwhelmed, because in your head those tasks you have to do or you want to get done start to accumulate day by day. Or perhaps what you feel at the end of the day is a feeling of failure because you didn't get to do what activity or that task you wanted to do or you want to incorporate in your daily life, even though it's not like a task that will accumulate. If you don't get it done, it will feel like a failure to you because you didn't do it. And the problem with this is that stressed brains and stressed minds tend to multitask out of worrying, out of this over-worrying default setting, out of the constant what if thought. What if I don't do this now? What if I start with this and at the end I will not have time for that one? What if my boss was expecting me to do both at the same time? I can't work out today either, as I will end up being late for doing this or that. This is the endless what if, what if, what if. And that is like a snowball. You are already multitasking out of stress, anxiety, over worry, and so on. Or even this negative, catastrophic anticipating of the future. So you think that multitasking will make you get more things done. And when you face the reality and realize that that isn't the case, your problems exponentially multiply. And those feelings of anxiety, overwhelm, insomnia, bad habits overcome or become better, worse and worse, which will lead to low effectiveness and productivity in both your personal and your professional life. So why multitasking isn't a way of being productive? In fact, there is a very important neurotransmitter that is needed among with other two in your brain to achieve high productivity and sustain peak performance, and it's called acetylcholine. And there is a few of those particles available in the brain, only a few. So guess what? When you are relaxed, when you are tranquil, content, and that allows you to focus your attention in one thing, in one task at a time, those levels of acetylcholine raised in your brain and raise your focus as well. So your focus becomes sustained. And as your focus becomes sustained in one task at a time, you are reducing the time you will use to complete that task effectively, and you will be also reducing almost to zero the risk of making mistakes, for example, or having accidents while dealing with that task. And at the end, that is called peak performing. Thanks for watching. See you next time.